Forget the vibrant colors of Queens. Forget the friendly neighborhood. In 1933, New York is not a city for heroes. It's a slaughterhouse, controlled by monsters. The Spider-Man you know doesn't use guns and doesn't kill. But this one? He's different. He carries the weight of a Great Depression on his shoulders and the blood of criminals on his hands. With the new live-action series starring Nicolas Cage coming to Prime Video, you need to know the brutal truth behind Peter Parker on Earth 90214. Today, we begin the Noir saga, the dark origin that changed everything we knew about our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The year is 1933, and a group of police officers raid the Daily Bugle office after receiving a call from someone claiming to be J. Jonah Jameson, stating that he was dying. Upon breaking down the door, they find Jameson bleeding in his chair, while Spidey is crouched over him holding a gun. The police open fire on the hero, who escapes by jumping through the window, though he gets grazed by a few bullets. Before we step into the shadows of 1933, if you're a fan of the Spider-Verse and want to follow this special series on Spider-Noir here on the channel, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. We're on a mission to dissect every corner of the multiverse, and you won't want to miss the next episode, where Peter faces something much worse than the Goblin. Did you subscribe? Alright, let's go back in time.
The story then flashes back, showing Jameson sending his reporter, Ben Urich, out to the streets to photograph the growing poverty in New York. In an area overrun by makeshift shacks, May Parker gives a political speech to impoverished residents. May criticizes the US government and advocates for socialist ideas, urging people to fight back against inequality. Soon, the enforcers appear, criminal goons trying to silence her. When her nephew, Peter Parker, tries to defend her, the thugs attack him too. Ben Urich manages to drive them off by threatening to publish their photos in the paper. Ben, the photographer, helps Peter and May return home, where they run a soup kitchen for the homeless. Disgusted by the world's injustices, Peter tags along with Ben to a speakeasy called the Black Cat, run by Felicia Hardy. This place is frequented by the city's corrupt elite. Even the mayor is there. While there, Peter ends up confronting Norman Osborn, known as the Goblin, the man responsible for the death of his Uncle Ben. He has two allies with him, who are this universe's versions of Kraven and the Vulture. Realizing that Peter hasn't lost his hope, even after witnessing so much corruption, Ben hires him as an assistant photographer for the Daily Bugle. Together, they start roaming the city, documenting social injustices and the horrors of the American Great Depression. However, instead of breaking Peter's spirit, all of this only fuels his anger against the system. Later on, Peter starts venting about the death of his Uncle Ben, who does exist in this universe. Ben Urich listens to it all.
However, later on, now alone, the photographer recalls what really happened. Uncle Ben was brutally murdered by one of the Goblin's henchmen, the cannibal known as the Vulture. Ben then reveals something even worse. He was present that night because he was working with the Goblin's men at the time. Keep in mind, in this universe, Uncle Ben didn't just die from a gunshot by a common thief. He was literally eaten alive by the Vulture on the Goblin's orders. When Peter finds out, something inside him dies along with his uncle. His thirst for justice is replaced by a bloodlust that the classic Spider-Man has never felt. A few days pass. Peter and Ben Urich are developing photos of a recent building fire, when Peter notices that one of Norman's goons appears in the pictures, linking the Goblin to the arson. Urich brushes off the discovery and replies with sarcasm when Peter brings up the ideals of his late Uncle Ben, the well-known quote about responsibility. Urich views the world with cynicism, believing that the corrupt always win. Later, Peter goes to Ben's house to show him the fallout from the photo published in the paper, but he finds the reporter completely high in a drug-induced stupor. While examining the syringes scattered around the house, the phone rings. Peter answers and hears an anonymous tip about the Goblin's men unloading ancient artifacts at a pier at 1 a.m. Driven by revenge, Peter heads to the location. During the unloading,
the goons drop a crate that releases a swarm of spiders, and one of them kills a henchman with a single bite. Shortly after, a spider lowers itself on a web near Peter's face and bites him. He falls into a bizarre vision where a gigantic, demonic spider tells him that its bite is only fatal to those with evil intentions. Then, Peter passes out. When he wakes up, he realizes he is wrapped in a web cocoon hanging from the rafters and discovers he has gained superhuman agility and abilities.
The next day, Ben Urich goes to Osborn's headquarters to sell the villain the incriminating photo in exchange for money and a guarantee that it won't be published. The Goblin pays the blackmail just as Peter storms the place wearing a small makeshift mask and black clothes. Peter takes down Osborn's bodyguards and confronts the crime boss, but Norman remains calm, stating that Peter would have to kill him to truly destroy his empire. At that moment, Peter spots the photo of the fire and sees Ben Urich fleeing the building. He leaves Norman and chases after the reporter through the streets, disgusted by his corruption and telling him he never wants to see him again. Before the conversation can continue, the Goblin and his men come out firing at Peter, who manages to escape by jumping a fence. Feeling ashamed of himself, Urich throws the money back at Osborn and declares he will never work for him again. Realizing the photographer is now a liability, the Goblin decides to silence him for good. Back home, Urich calls Jameson and tells him he has evidence linking Norman Osborn to several crimes. Jameson tells him to stay hidden until he personally comes to pick up the photos. However, upon arriving at Urich's house, Jameson shoots the reporter in the head as soon as the door opens, killing him instantly. After that, Jameson calls Norman to confirm the problem has been taken care of.
Meanwhile, at his own house, Peter finishes stitching his Uncle Ben's old pilot uniform into a makeshift suit. Putting it on for the first time, he officially assumes the identity of Spider-Man and swears revenge on Norman. That twist with Jameson is one very few could have seen coming. At this exact moment, Peter Parker goes from being just an angry orphan to becoming Spider-Man Noir. If you want to check out the details of this incredible art by Carmine Di Giandomenico, the link to the official comic is in the description. It's a must-read for anyone looking to gear up before binge-watching the Prime Video series, or if you've already watched it and want to know everything that went down in the comics. But are there even more twists to this story? Peter decides he needs Ben Urich's help to stop the Goblin, so he heads to the journalist's house. Upon arriving, however, he finds Urich dead and immediately calls the cops. Later, while walking through the city trying to process what happened, Peter is invited into the Black Cat speakeasy to talk to Felicia, and she drops a harsh truth on him. You were the one who inspired Urich to do the right thing, and that's what got him killed. She then hands Peter all of the photographer's secret files, packed with incriminating evidence against the Goblin, who is actually Norman Osborn, along with documents detailing his entire criminal operation. Meanwhile, in his hideout, the Goblin flies into a rage upon discovering that someone has those files and orders the manhunt to be escalated immediately. Following Felicia's advice, which was to not trust the Bugle with the files, Peter starts using the information inside them to dismantle Norman Osborn's operations across the city. Over several nights, he raids warehouses, destroys shipments, and dismantles criminal rackets tied to Osborn. Little by little, other crime bosses begin to lose faith in the protection the Goblin provides. Spider-Man starts becoming well known among the city's population, which only makes Norman more obsessed with finding out who is helping the vigilante. Amidst his paranoia, the enforcer Ox mentions that he saw Peter Parker meeting with Felicia Hardy right after Urich's death. So Norman makes his decision: kidnap Peter and Felicia to beat the answers out of them.
Sometime later, Spider-Man is reading the Bugle, seeing all the fake news Jameson has been pushing, and decides to confront him face to face. But when he breaks into the editor's office, he finds Jameson shot and practically dead in his chair. Struggling to breathe, Jameson mutters about the master of disguise before dying. At that exact moment, the cops storm the room. And that brings us right back to the beginning of the story. Spider-Man escapes through the window, only getting grazed by a bullet, but he realizes just how dangerously out of control his life has become. Confused by Jameson's murder, Peter goes back to Urich's files, looking for answers. Scouring the documents about Osborn's enforcers, he finally finds something that catches his eye. That night, Spider-Man breaks into the morgue and examines the body of the deceased Jameson. Pressing on the corpse's face, he uncovers a shocking truth. It wasn't Jameson who died, but the chameleon, Osborn's former enforcer and master of disguise. This leaves both the reader and Spider-Man wondering, where is the real Jameson? The answer surfaces in another part of the city. The real Jameson is locked inside a makeshift cell built by Norman. Shortly after, the Goblin brings in a gagged Felicia and throws her into the same cage. With a disturbing smile, he remarks, "Now we're just missing our final guest, Peter." Meanwhile, at Peter's house, Aunt May walks into his room looking for her nephew. Without her realizing it, the Vulture is hiding on the ceiling, hovering silently right above her. The Vulture knows Aunt May and Peter's family because he was the one who killed Uncle Ben in the past.
Before the Vulture can do anything else, Spider-Man bursts into the room, demanding he let her go. The villain glares at Peter and asks how fast Spider-Man can move, wondering if he'd be quick enough to stop May's neck from getting snapped. Peter realizes he probably wouldn't be, and seeing no other way out, draws his pistol. May begs him not to shoot, but Peter fires several times, killing the Vulture. Horrified, May says that Spidey just killed a defenseless man and asks why he didn't use his webs instead of a gun. Peter replies that the Vulture was going to kill her, but May shoots back, saying that's always his excuse. She claims the papers are right about him and that Peter thinks he's above the law. Gripping the gun, Peter thinks to himself that May just doesn't understand that these people don't play by the rules. Even so, May asks him to hand over the pistol. Peter just looks at her, apologizes, and leaves without giving up the weapon. You can really tell right here that this Spider-Man is going to be completely different from the Peter we know.
Among Urich's files that Peter was analyzing, he ends up finding a location called the Torture House. That's where he figures Jameson is being held. Jameson is shown locked in a cage while the Goblin, his men, and Felicia watch the scene. Felicia asks what's going on, and Jameson comments that she looks like she's seen a ghost. Right after, Norman reveals that Jameson was murdered hours earlier by Spider-Man and claims his informants confirmed it. Suspicious, Felicia asks how Norman knows that, insinuating that maybe Spider-Man is living a lie. She accuses him of ordering the hero to kill Jameson, just like Jameson himself killed Urich. Felicia then reveals the whole truth. She had Urich's files on the day Ben died, and Ben was the one who asked her to take the documents. Felicia witnessed Jameson shooting him the second he opened the door. After that, she managed to escape down the fire escape and went after Jameson at the first opportunity. She states that she didn't hire anyone to do the dirty work and that she killed Jameson herself.
Norman gets extremely pissed off because by saying she killed Jameson, who was actually the chameleon, she killed his half-brother. He just found this out through Felicia's confession of killing Jameson, who wasn't really Jameson. Even while claiming he values his relationship with Felicia, Norman makes it clear he can't let that go unpunished. Felicia then slaps him across the face and tells him not to touch her. Norman's skin begins to crack as he says he wanted to handle this quickly and painlessly, but that Felicia always finds a way to irritate him. Just then, Spider-Man drops from the ceiling, announcing that, unfortunately, the Vulture won't be joining them. Kraven immediately points at Peter and declares that he is his target. One of the goons orders everyone to kill Spider-Man, but Peter reacts quickly, webbing him up while dodging bullets. Kraven tries to hit him, but accidentally kills his own henchman instead. Furious, Kraven vows revenge. However, Peter violently strikes him with a metal pipe. Meanwhile, Norman grabs Felicia by the arm and pulls a lever, announcing that it's feeding time. The bars of a cage start to rise, revealing a white tiger ready to attack Jameson. Spider-Man throws himself in front of the beast. He grabs its jaw and covers the entire tiger in webbing, leaving it completely immobilized. Norman then starts descending into the sewers, dragging Felicia with him, and warns that if Spider-Man keeps following them, she'll die. Kraven gets back up, trying to say something, but his voice is unrecognizable. Spider-Man then kicks him right into the spider enclosure. The glass shatters, and the spiders swarm Kraven, starting to eat him alive. Meanwhile, Felicia walks through the sewer tunnels, telling Norman it's all over and that he's a dead man. Then, Spider-Man appears behind them.
Peter tackles Norman to the ground and tells Felicia to run while she still can. Peter grabs Norman by the throat, and this is the moment they both try to unmask each other. Norman rips off Spider-Man's mask, and Peter does the exact same thing right after, seeing Norman's true face. Realizing who Peter is, Norman calls him Urich's kid. Peter stares at Norman's deformed face and remarks that now he gets why they call him the Goblin. The two start fighting for the gun, as Norman reveals he spent his whole life being humiliated by that nickname. Now, however, people speak his name with respect. Norman stares straight at Peter and says he can see the hate in his eyes, egging the kid on to pull the trigger. Peter then remembers Urich, Uncle Ben, and Aunt May. At the very last second, he lowers the gun. Peter replies that killing Norman would be too easy and declares that he is going to stand trial. The Goblin smiles and tells Peter he just blew his chance. It looks like Norman is finally going to be locked up, but what he didn't count on was that Kraven wasn't dead yet. Suddenly, Kraven reappears, completely covered in spiders. Norman panics and tells him to back off, but Kraven keeps marching forward, grabbing the Goblin and tumbling into the sewer water with him as the current sweeps them both away. 2 months later, Felicia is shown surrounded by cats while reading the paper. Thanks to Urich's files, dozens of corrupt cops and politicians ended up behind bars. Spider-Man even pops up at her window. Felicia asks what Peter is doing there, and he replies that he can't stop thinking about what the Goblin said about him. Felicia admits she left Ben because of the Goblin, but says it's complicated and none of his business. Peter then hands her an envelope, explaining he found it among Urich's things and thought she should have it. Felicia opens the envelope to find a photo of her and Urich, looking happy together.
The winter finally ends. Norman and his allies are either dead or in prison. Jameson goes back to spreading speeches about freedom and equality throughout the city's papers. Aunt May keeps fighting for the common folk, and despite knowing that monsters will always exist, she believes there will always be good people, and that in the end, the good guys always win. Norman Osborn has fallen. His spiders, which once gave Peter his power, ultimately became his own undoing at the hands of a mutated Kraven. New York seems, for a brief moment, a little less filthy. But winter is coming, and Peter Parker knows that in the shadows of Earth 90214, evil never sleeps for long. Peter handed Felicia the only thing left of Ben Urich's humanity, a photo, a memory of happier times. He now carries the burden of being the judge, jury, and if necessary, executioner of this city. This was the rise of Spider-Man Noir. But the story is far from over. In the next video of this series, we're going to dive into Eyes Without a Face, where Peter will face racism, macabre scientific experiments, and one of Marvel's most terrifying villains. What did you think of this grittier, more grounded version of Peter Parker? Was he right not to kill the Goblin at the end, or should he have pulled the trigger? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to drop a like to support our Noir series, and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. This is Comic Chronicles, and I'll catch you in the next video.